You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
I know Rosie loves this. We're a week away from the trade deadline, and folks, the reason why I'm laughing, just the first or the last 5 seconds before the podcast start, you just never know what's going to come out of Rosie's mouth, and today was no different. What's going on, buddy?
We should record it and put it out.
You had an idea for a new T-shirt you want to share?
Nah, I'm all good right now. We got still cancel culture is still there's still little remnants of it out there, so I'm gonna hold off.
Hey, I saw John Gruden got reinstated by Tampa Bay yesterday. The Bucks.
Gridsy, is he the guy with like the girl on his lap at the bar? And he's just
I don't know. Honestly, I shouldn't even have said that because I don't know the whole story. But he was reinstated by the Buccaneers after they took him out of their Hall of Fame.
I know. So, I remember. Yeah. I can't remember either, but I remember Google John Gruden what his controversy was. But I remember seeing it just being like, "Jeez, buddy, whoa!" But yeah, he's back, I guess.
Could be a tough one. Presented by Bet365. This is the Friday edition of Leafs Morning Take. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. But so maybe I misspoke on that front. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION all in uppercase today. Our Super Chat charity part of this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. Can you believe it has been 15 years since the Golden Goal in Vancouver?
No, that sunk in for me this year with Four Nations creeping up, and then obviously a lot of the dialogue going back to the Golden Goal. And I mean, it honestly feels like 10 would be, a nice, probably right in the wheelhouse. Probably 10 years ago is kind of the feeling, is what it feels like. I don't know if that's different for different people of different ages, but man, now that I'm kind of late 30s, I'm looking at 40. That happens all the time. Like everything you think is 10 or 20 years ago is 30, or it's almost double. It's 50% more than you think. And I cannot believe that was 15 years ago. That seems like fairly recent, dude. So yeah, I guess we're getting old if that's how we feel.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And again, we're just on the heels of the Four Nations final. Connor McDavid scoring the winner. It felt like the passing the baton, if you will, from Crosby to McDavid. And now we're celebrating the 15-year anniversary of Vancouver in 2010 and the Golden Goal for Sidney Crosby. Just ages me a bit. By the way, a bit of breaking news on the wire right now. The Maple Leafs placing Max Pacioretty on injured reserve. So it went from yesterday where Craig Berube said he looked good. Pacioretty said, I'll talk to doctors. It was trending towards playing today, and now Pacioretty's on injured reserve. How about that?
It continues. Like, how are we supposed to? Why do we even bother reporting why do they say anything? It is always, it's more often than not a complete veer from the original thought process, and not even like, I understand things change in a couple of weeks. I'm not mad. Yesterday, they're like, probably going to play on Friday. Injured reserve. Like, how do you have those two? I've never seen it where a guy and the reports are, he's going to play tomorrow, and then we're putting him on injured reserve. I've never seen that in my life. I've never seen it. I don't get how it happens. I'm in shock. Well, I'm not surprised, but I'm in shock that it can be this silly with the Toronto Maple Leafs and they're reporting on their players' injuries. Like, are you kidding me? Why say all that stuff?
Well, I will say we deserve to give Sheldon Keefe some apologies, because it's the same old song and dance with Chief now. If you recall, like Keefe, we're like, what the hell is going on? How do things change so much? But it's been the same story this season with Craig Berube. But the one thing I will say, I am a conspiracy theorist. Today marks the 1 week away from the NHL trade deadline, and cap space is king, and the Leafs are in a lot of different situations trying to make trades. And I wonder if it was just best for the situation to put Pacioretty, who's been dinged up, has missed the first 3 games out of the break, on injured reserve to give yourself some flexibility here.
That's great. So why on earth would you say 2 days ago, he's feeling good, he's going to probably play tomorrow? Like, that was the last 2 days of reports on on Pacioretty is he's like probably playing on Friday against the New York Rangers. Okay. And then LTIR. Like, why do they, if they just came out with LTIR, it wouldn't really, it wouldn't have that spin on it. Like, why the hell? That's the first thing everyone says. Why the hell did you say he was X? Now I'm thinking about Tanev going, well, I'm not going to believe anything you say about day to day or good news or we're lucky with him or anything. I'm not believing any of that. He could have a grade 3 separation and be on the shelf getting surgery for all I know. I wouldn't be surprised to hear anything at this point. So, yeah, lots going on. I just heard that. My initial reaction is, of course, like, how can you be this one side of the aisle and the other side of it in a matter of days? Why say anything? I don't blame Chief because, like you said, that's what Sheldon Keefe did as well. So it's coming from the Maple Leafs. It's coming from up top. The coaches aren't the ones deciding and all this stuff. They're being told what to say on the front of this guy and that guy. So I don't blame Chief, but why say maybe they pivoted, right? But yeah, maybe that is the reason for that. That he is, maybe they're doing a little cap crunching gymnastics here and putting a guy on the shelf to make some room for something. Obviously, that's going to open a lot of internal dialogue for speculation and rumors, which is fun.
Yeah, you love your rumors, and maybe it's a precursor to Calle Yarncroke. They did say the other day he is trending towards being available very, very soon. He's getting very, very close, and maybe it's on Broadway. Maybe it's on Sunday at Pittsburgh. Maybe it's Monday at home to the San Jose Sharks. But yeah, I'm right there with you. The fact that 48 hours ago we were talking about Pacioretty potentially returning tonight, and now all of a sudden he's on injured reserve. It's
Like, we weren't
very
talking
interesting.
about it. The Leafs were talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They said they like usually they just say he's close, and it's like, okay, well, thanks for the nothing burger, but they're like, he's close, like most likely, like I can't remember the exact quote, but most likely going to play on Friday, something of that nature. Like, oh, okay, great, all right, sounds good. We'll pencil him in, and we're going to talk about him today, and where does he fit, and LTIR or IR. It's like, okay, just weird, man. Interesting timing of it though. Any other time of the year, which has happened a bunch of times with players, it's just an eye roll. Like, why feed us fake news? I don't really get it. But this time, being that close to the trade deadline, interesting on how that's going to work.
Where are you at on Pacioretty?
I mean, remember when he came in? Remember when they were thinking about signing him? They gave him that PTO. They gave him a little tryout, and he came out. And it's like, ooh, this guy, has still got some stuff left, and it's like his experience is shining through. He's not a wild card. We kind of know what his pedigree is. So, and he came out of the gate saying, "Look, I'm healthy." Everyone was worried about his Achilles. He looked good. I was all for signing him. I'm happy we signed him. He's also reinvented his game to the point where, okay, listen, I'm not taking Willie's job. I'm not taking Mitch's job. He gets that. Now he's train wrecking guys. He's had some of the biggest hits of the year for the Toronto Maple Leafs, no doubt about it, and kind of elevated his game, which he's not known for in his long career, but he's smart. He's a wily veteran. What can I do to be valuable to a team? What can I do to earn my contract and more contracts after this? I've been high on him. I would, every player on the roster, I would love if he popped off and played way above expectation, of course. The reason I'm high on him is I think he's a player that could potentially do that. Will he or not? That's up to him. Being injured is not ideal, but I'm a Pacioretty fan and glad that they've signed him.
Most importantly, he wears 67. The Leafs haven't won a cup since 1967, so I think it's a good omen to have the player. But I'm starting to fade a bit, and again, we'll see what they do between now and next Friday. But I start to wonder when healthy, if healthy, where Pacioretty fits on this roster, because maybe 2 months ago we were talking about him being on line 2 with Tavares and Nylander, but let's say they bring in a Braden Shen. Is he on the third line? Is a lot on the third line? Are they on the second line? There are a lot more moving parts this time of year. And from a placement standpoint, a deployment standpoint, I wonder where Pacioretty fits now going into the playoffs.
I wouldn't. I mean, if a guy gets bumped down, I think that's a good sign because you have higher quality players playing deeper in your lineup, which just gives you more depth. And to see Pacioretty on a third line, which would mean that we've bolstered our top six in some way, shape, or form and bumped him down. And I think that at his age and capabilities and with minutes played and all the rest of it, that's a good spot for him. I think he could complement a couple of guys on that third line. He can kind of do it all. He's smart. He's reliable. He can finish plays. He can make plays. He's shown that he can bang and crash and be physical and understand that you might have to have a little bit of grit and energy on that line. I think he checks a lot of boxes. I don't really like him up in the top 6. Like,
Yeah.
I think you know the firepower that we have and the capabilities. I think you slot him down in the third, and then all of a sudden that gives you some of that depth. The funny thing is, right now that third line is buzzing, as they do tend to have some chemistry there. But I don't even bother looking at the lineups and analyzing, because we're so close to the deadline, right? Let the
Yeah.
dust settle, let the triggers get pulled, and then let's get deep and analyze what this thing's going to look like. That's when it gets exciting, is when you're like, well, this is the group. And after the trade deadline, that's the feeling in the room. You close the door, you say, this is the group. This is what we've decided. This is what we're going with. This is what we believe. And everyone looks around and says, well, no one's going anywhere. No one's coming in. This is it. And it's a kind of there's a finality to it of, okay, this is it. This is the group.
Let's
And if you
go.
believe in yourself and
Yeah.
you have a chance that year, and you're high in the standings and you're doing well and your good hockey is great, fuck, it's a good feeling, man. So I'm looking forward to that. And then you can kind of see what things look like.
Okay, so we'll reconvene in maybe 2 weeks' time, and we'll talk about Pacioretty, where he fits on this roster. So I guess Nick Robertson doesn't want to trade anymore. I did some digging on this story. Luke Fox putting it out, but I guess he talked to Foxy and a couple other media members on Wednesday after practice, not part of the scrums, by the way, and said something. I want to be here, so I'm fine. Yeah, I don't think about that stuff. They asked him about the trade deadline. He's been cooking. And I asked Foxy specifically, I'm like, did you interpret this as him rescinding his trade request? And he said yes. So I guess Nick Robertson no longer wants out, Rosie.
What month was that trade request put in? August?
Yeah, around there, yeah.
Like, I haven't thought about him requesting a trade in months and months and months.
I have.
In my mind, that's in the past. Like, dude, he wasn't being used in the minors, but he's like, I'm in my prime here. I didn't doubt him, or I didn't you know, think less of him for doing that at all. I know fans love to do that, but the guy's got to look out for his career. They're not using him. They don't value him. You feel like you're buried. You look at other players around the league who you think you're better than, and they're getting better than you and getting more experience. You're going, I'm buried here. So you just go up and you say, hey guys, like, I love it here, and I would love nothing more than to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. But if you're not going to use me, like, I have to request it. I have to go somewhere where, like, my career is short, and I can't keep wasting years, which he may feel like he's been doing. And there's all the reasons on whose fault is that. That's fine. But if in his mind he needed to get out of here, I don't blame him for it. He has since been used, and especially lately, it's interesting to have the conversation, because recency bias, he's been playing really well and scoring a bunch of goals, and him and his brother both got 2 at the same, and he's looking good. So in my mind, for months, that has been gone. He's on the Leafs. He's happy to be here. I don't think that's been on his mind. For the Leafs, though, has his stock gone up a little bit? Has he opened some people's eyes around the league? Could he be used? I think he could absolutely be thrown in as a piece to get a deal to the finish line. So whether he says he rescinds it or not is irrelevant to me. In my mind, that's old news, and it doesn't really matter.
Most importantly, he's been a pro about this whole situation, because you're right. It's not one of those like contentious type things like a JT Miller where it's like, get me the fuck out of here. It's like, I want playing time, and it's not working. And Sheldon Keefe was there before. And to his credit, he signs the contract for $875K. He comes in. It's been an up and down season for Nick Robertson, but he's been red hot as of late. But it was one of more of those things than the latter, where it's like, I'm really, really pissed off. Don't want to be here. I get that. But yeah, I read it the same way, where it's like, out of sight, out of mind. It's been a long time ago. He's feeling good about the game. So what else is he going to say right now, right?
Yeah. Like, to you, his play as of late, does that make you think, oh, maybe we could use him? Maybe he is going to blossom and be valuable and be useful in the team? Or does his play of late mean to you, maybe someone will bite on him and we could use him as a piece to move?
It's probably that. I think he's a pretty decent trade chip. I wonder what his value is around the league. I wonder if he can be sort of a quote unquote throw-in in a potential bigger deal. I wonder about the perception all the time with Leafs players. I know we glorify these guys and we say they're so great, but how are they perceived out of market? And I guess we'll find out in the next week. Like, I think this is great for Robertson. It's great for the Maple Leafs too. It's around the trade deadline time, and your player's red hot. So is Pontus Holmberg. But in the big grand scheme of things, I'm not sure, again, he is a fit in the top 6, and that's where I think he needs to be with this team. I want to reserve my bottom 6 for like a checking type role, and I don't think Nick Robertson fits that. He's okay defensively. He's not great defensively. When he's not scoring, he's not much use to this team, quite frankly.
I know. I don't want pure checking on the third line, because if the big boys aren't scoring, and you know what it looks like in the playoffs when it's just chances and no one's penetrating the middle and it's perimeter shit, and you don't have a whole lot of substantiated ozone time, and you're just not doing much. That's where your depth comes in, where you need guys to like chip in and break that, ice loose and get that goal and score and alleviate the pressure from the big boys. So I don't want to go full heavy on the bottom 6. In an ideal world, the guys in the bottom 6, they can they're quick. They can get on the forecheck. They can bang and crash. They can hit. They can get pucks in on the goalie and get ozone face-offs and cycle a little bit and crash and step up when needed to, and not to be deterred by any kind of physicality. But they also have the skill to be able to finish pucks and jump on loose ones. And, if they get the opportunity with their ice time, they can put one on the board. So a little bit of both, I think. And I don't know, like Robertson's just kind of middle of the road with me. I love his work ethic, man. I'll never, hate on him for that. He is buzzing out there. Like, I bet you that guy's legs, I bet you they're huge, and I bet you they're burnt out at the end of every game. He is flying. Just sometimes it doesn't accomplish a whole lot, but there is that potential. Like, he's got enough skill to like wow you once in a while, but he just hasn't been able to do it consistently enough. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that I do not want Nick Robertson in my top 6. I think that I think that you're conceding the fact that you're probably not a Stanley Cup winning team if Nick Robertson's in your top 6. Sorry. I can handle him on the third line if he's producing and if he's buzzing and adopting that bottom 6 mentality. But yeah, there's limits there.
In a perfect world, I would like to keep him cap crunch. It's always going to be a cap crunch this time of year. So we'll see on that front when it comes to Nick Robertson.
How do you upgrade him for $975 or whatever, right? Like, how do you make it better for that money? It's tough. And if they're going to make some other deals, the cap's going to be a factor. So that's a thing to think about for sure.
Presented by Fountain Tire. Join us for Flight Night on Saturday, March 8th at Greta Bar YYZ's. We host a watch party for the Toronto-Colorado game. As part of Flight Night, one lucky winner and a guest of their choice will win a spot in the first ever TLN Nation vacation happening in Nashville, March 20th to 23rd. To be eligible, all you need to do is purchase a $10 ticket for this event at nationgear.ca. You got to show up as well, and you will automatically be entered into the raffle draw. On top of that, you can buy additional raffle tickets for the draw for $20 a pop in support of One Broken Biker. We still have a few spots to fill on this trip. We're offering 2 packages, one with flights, $24.50 plus tax, one without, $12.99 plus tax. Hotel rooms, double occupancy. For more information on how to book, head on over to nationgear.ca. That's nationgear.ca, or check out the link in our show bio. Life's too short for ordinary vacations. Looking forward to that, and looking forward to tonight's edition of the Leafs Nation After Dark. Just got word that you're going to be a guest with Zach Phillips tonight.
Yeah, just slotted myself in on the show. So that'll be fun. Look forward to that. I'm going to be paying attention heavy. And I just rolled up the win rim. This cup said play it again, but like I spun on the app and I won a coffee, but that might have been from yesterday. I can't really remember. How does your app know what cup they give you is kind of what I'm not totally sure of. It's fun to roll up the rim again, though, and physically do it. I will say that.
Roll Up to Win is back at Tim Hortons, as Rosie just mentioned there, and that means you can win millions of amazing prizes with just a swipe of a thumb. Imagine turning your routine. Go ahead.
Did you segue the ad? Man, that was sick.
You did. Well, there's a couple other things I wanted to get to, but it's okay. We'll include them after the ad reads. So imagine turning your routine Tim's Run an unforgettable vacation with Sell-Off Vacations, a $1,000 racket and cash prize, or an all-new, all-electric 2025 Volkswagen ID Buzz. You only have until March 23rd, so open that Tim's app and get rolling. Play Roll Up to Win today. Play Roll Up to Win today. Rules apply. Canada only. No purchase necessary. Visit the Tim's app for details.
There you go.
Nailed it.
You're welcome for getting that on a tee for you.
We have Nick Kypreos coming up in about 10 minutes here at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review, pretty please. And don't forget to visit theleafsnation.com. So it's the Leafs and Rangers from Broadway tonight, Rosie. And you always have that infamous story with your old man where you got piled on Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Oh, hurting there, and then got thrown into the mix unexpectedly. Ron Wilson, damn you, he knew it. Yeah, it happens. But something about that building, man, the most famous arena in the world, or something they call it. But
Yeah.
I remember getting there, being like, man, like a lot of stuff happened there. I think the Beatles played there. Muhammad Ali,
WrestleMania.
Of course, WrestleMania. Lots
Hell
of
yeah.
things. Very cool. And that iconic roof. I always thought that was neat. And I flipped one deep on Lundqvist. It took a weird hop and hit the post. Pretty sweet, too. So not a big deal.
Definitely. And the big news, too, Chris Tanev not playing in this game, upper body injury. Phil Myers drawing in. The morning skate hasn't taken place just yet for the Leafs. The Rangers on right now, but we'll see if Nylander is a go. Again, if you missed the start of the show, Max Pacioretty out, placed on injured reserve, so he won't play tonight. Do you foresee Reeves entering, and does he scrap Matt Rempe?
Ooh. Interesting. I don't know, man. Could happen. A lot of stranger things have happened than that, but didn't think about that. Reeves could draw in. That'd be awesome. I would like to. I'd like to see Reeves get on the board. Be at the point of a game where like maybe we have a bad start and something isn't happening, and then he goes after him and like makes it obvious I'm going, and we go, and boom, it's a big one. And then right after that, the Leafs just pepper and momentum, and they bury one while he's in the box, and yeah, job done. So that would be cool. We'll see. I don't know. It seems like Reeves is kind of an afterthought, and when we're talking about the moves this team's making and what they need to do, it seems less and less like Revo kind of slots into there, unfortunately. But like I said, if he can make an impact when he gets a chance, I think it would be best for him, obviously.
The Leafs have won 3 in a row and 6 of the last 7. They're 2-0-0 on this 4-game road trip. And you never know. This could be a potential matchup in the Stanley Cup playoffs. The Rangers have sputtered big time this season. They're banged up. I believe there's a bunch of game time decisions. Adam Fox is not going to play, but guys like Kreider and Miller and Keandre Miller as well, or maybe it's Keandre Miller, not JT Miller, will be game time decisions for this game. So they're a very vulnerable group, and I think the start's going to be so important for these guys tonight.
Yeah, big time, as it usually is. You want to go out and grab momentum, and the recent game there against the Bruins, the Leafs, they didn't get off to a great start, but I don't. If you were watching the game, I think you could say, well, there was some things happen that, it's not like they were just asleep at the wheel, but they would certainly like to get out to a good start on the road, as you always do. You don't really want to let them pile on and get their crowd rocking and rolling and get buried on early, and then everyone's trying to regroup and adjust. So yeah, that will be big for sure. And it's just going to be interesting to see honestly, this time of year, who's injured, what do the lines look like? We don't know who's in, they don't know who's in. Be interesting to see when they solidify the lineup. Sometimes that doesn't even happen until after warm up.
This time of year, how beneficial is getting that day off? Because the Leafs, as you talked about, practice on Wednesday in Boston, then made the commute to New York, but they got all of Thursday off to do whatever.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the guys that played in the Four Nations, for the other guys, I don't think that's a huge deal. You just had how many days off? Like, you should be fresh. You guys got a great big break where you got to go and take a great big breather. So those guys should feel pretty fresh. But for the Willies and for, Mitch and Austin, I think that day off is big. And I think you'll see down the stretch, they'll get days off where other people don't necessarily. Obviously, you'll throw it to a JT. Those guys can decide what they want to do. A guy that's as veteran and high end as some of the players like a Jonathan Tavares, they know what they want to do. You give them an option, and they might very well go out and skate. They might very well take it off. They might do other things. They might hit the gym. They know at that time in their career what works best for them. And with a young group, say in the American League, they'll just take it because take it off, and they don't know if it's best for them or not. But there's certain guys that are at a certain level where you can absolutely put that in their lap and they'll make the right call. But for those guys in the Four Nations, I think they're probably grinding a little bit. They went on the road right away. And it's just, they're probably feeling the effects every morning, with their sleep and that extra day where, okay, I can kind of do what I want and regroup and refresh. It's probably welcome for those guys, but everyone else on the roster, no, I don't think they need that right now.
I know they've won 3 in a row, but it'd be great to see the Leafs get back to sort of their DNA, their system that got them here in the first place. I think it's been a bit more wide open in the first 3 games post 4 Nations. I get it. It's been a theme around the league, but the big story has been sort of the depth guys. And I wonder tonight on Broadway, the bright lights. I'm looking at Matthews. I'm looking at Marner. Tavares has been pretty decent since coming back. Looks refreshed, which is great. I'm looking at the big guys to sort of guide this ship tonight, just because I don't want to say they've been missing in action, but they haven't been the big stories for me lately.
Yeah, and understandably so with those guys coming back, like we were talking about from that tournament. They're probably a little gassed, but it's been awesome that you can get that depth, scoring and get guys to lead the way and keep this thing going and come out of the gates. I mean, you look at some of the teams that are having tough games post break. It's tough. It's not a good look, and it's not a good time of year to have that. So hats off to the depth pieces in that third line that can buzz around, and Pontus and these guys that are carrying the way. But yeah, it'd be nice to see those boys get going. I imagine Craig Berube is going to be preaching a message like the things you mentioned. Get off to a good start here. Let's play the right way. Let's keep it going north. Let's tighten things up. Let's get back to our system and solidifying our DNA and working on that. So as nice as it is, they've been rattling off the wins with a good team, as good as this one is expected to be. There's always better, and there's always room for improvement.
My mistake, too. I offended producer Vic. Yes, Mitch Marner had 2 goals last game, so sorry about that. But the theme I was trying to set is that the big boys haven't really been the story for this team, aside from Marner scoring the OT winner in Boston in a crazy, chaotic game. But it was Pontus Holmberg who they couldn't do it. The big boys could not do it 6-on-5. It was Pontus Holmberg who ties up the hockey game. But nevertheless, I think it's a really good story for this team. You get depth scoring, you're going to be very, very difficult to beat. How about in between the pipes? You expect Wall? Do you think they go back and forth here?
It seems like that's what they're doing. Yeah, I don't know. The Rangers, I think they'll go to Wall for sure. Unless they have a reason, or I think they'll try to time it where, I don't know, if they think one's kind of a front runner, they'll try to put them against, a higher tiered team, maybe if they can look a week ahead in the schedule. But other than that, it looks like they're kind of switch hitting them, which has been working so far. It gives them the nice gaps in between their performances, and neither goaltender seems to have a problem with that from what we can see. So I would expect Woll to be in tonight.
By the way, Marshall Rafai was recalled in favor of Max Pacioretty. Again, if you're just tuning in, Pacioretty landing on injured reserve. The Leafs just hitting the ice for the morning skate. So we'll see in terms of line configurations, but there is a Ryan Reeves sighting. So,
well, we knew he was going to be on the ice.
Yeah. You just never know if he's going to take line rushes. But I do, getting back to your point earlier on, I do think he's a fit to play tonight. You got to get him back in there. Like we were talking about it yesterday. It's been almost a month. And the Rangers are a suitable opponent. You got Rempe on the other side. I think it makes sense, no?
Especially with Patches going down, whether they expected that or not. That's kind of a little.
Who do you take out, though? I guess is the question, right? Sorry to interrupt. Like, who do you take out if it's not going to be Holmberg? It's not going to be Robertson. Just thinking on that fourth line, who do they have right now? Lorentz.
Is it Lorentz?
Drawing a blank.
The centerman, for crying out loud. Isn't it funny when 2 people can't do that at the same time?
Yeah, I know.
And then Steve's on the right, like maybe Steve's.
It's going to be Steve's. Yeah,
he's going to watch. But if that were to happen, it depends on what their opinion on him is. We'll see. But yeah, I agree that it would be an interesting time to throw him in. It would make sense.
This interview is brought to you by our friends over at Greta Bar. Whether it's before, during, or after the game, it's the place to be on King Street West. Awesome street food and wicked arcade games. 590 King Street West. Greta Bar. Let the games begin. It's pretty much the Super Bowl for today's guest. It is Nick Kypreos. What's going on, Kipper?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
We're doing well. Is it the Super Bowl for you, the Rangers and the Maple Leafs here?
Always a lot of fun. I'll never forget being at the TD Garden at the time in Boston with the Leafs up 2013, if I can remember correctly, the meltdown, the 18-wheeler going off the cliff. And with about 13 minutes to go, I had booked my hotel and my flight to New York to get ready for the Leafs and the Rangers in the conference final, if I'm not mistaken again, or the second round, whatever it was. it was my dream playoff matchup. My two teams, my two last teams in my career going head to head, my hometown versus the team that I won the Stanley Cup with. What could be better? You know what? I ended up going to Saskatoon for the Memorial Cup when Boston came back to win that series. So there you go. I get a snip of it tonight with the Leafs and the Rangers on a Friday night.
I remember being in a hospital. I'd gotten home from Philly, and I'm in the hospital delivering my first kid. Well, my wife was doing most of the delivering, but I was there too. And I would just check. I just checked in the waiting room, and that was the night they melted down. They kept showing April Reimer, and I was like, "What is going on?" So I'll never forget where I was when they did that. That's one that really stings Leafs fans, no doubt.
Yeah, sure did.
All right, Kipper, let's get to the big story. Obviously, the deadline a week away. Why don't we sift through some of the news and notes? So we'll start with the Pacioretty news. You shocked he's on IR here?
No, not at all. I think when we look back at the invitation, the PTO, he had already had a history of breaking down, and here we are now going towards the trade deadline, and they're doing everything they can to open up as much cap space as possible. And we'll see how this plays out. I give him full credit for whatever he's been able to give the Leafs up until this point has been more than what I had thought. His ability to play physical has been a little less than remarkable for me. So I think he's given everything he has up until this point, and we'll see if there's going to be an availability come playoff time, but not overly surprised to see where he is right now. He's never been that physical of a player throughout his career. So the ask was big this year for him. Unfortunately, the body's broken down somewhat.
Kipper, what do you think about the way the Leafs handle releasing news on injuries? They seem to go about it in a different way. I mean, a couple of days ago, they literally said Pacioretty is going to probably most likely be ready to play on Friday. And then on Friday, he's on IR. Do you notice them handling it different? Do you find it annoying? Is that just business as usual in that league?
I know a lot of people in the media find it annoying. But, Rosie, I'll tell you, if I was running a team, if I was running the Toronto Maple Leafs, I would be no different. And you played it. You know what it's like. We never shared information. We never liked hearing that the other team knew where my injury was. Could it be targeted? Could it be? I mean, that's just old school me. But unless the league tells me otherwise, like the National Football League tells their Players Association and their respective teams that you must declare, I'd be the same way.
Nick Robertson wants to stay. I guess he officially rescinds his trade request, and sort of the quote with Luke Foxter, your coworker. How much do you read into that, and what are the chances Robertson stays a Leaf past the deadline, in your opinion?
Well, my experience throughout my career is whether you wanted to stay or go, that I'm not sure it made a heck of a big difference to a club that is thinking big picture. And I've got a lot of respect for Nick and what he's been able to do and hang in there, and the recent streak that he's on. It's all good. He's doing his part. Let's put it that way. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure where they stand in terms of legitimately looking at Nick Robertson saying he's a top 9 guy for us to make a playoff push. So we'll see how that plays out. I think at times they've tried to move him this year with no real interest. We'll see if his last few weeks have made a difference going into Friday for clubs to maybe consider him, maybe even contending teams considering him. But right now, I think he's done his part. Now it's up to the Leafs to decide which direction they go with Nick Robertson.
Kipper, you've been reporting on Mikko Rantanen a little bit lately, and obviously the Canes have got themselves in a potential jam if they can't re-sign this guy. I mean, it's pretty big news. If that doesn't happen and there's, a deal to be made, do you think the Maple Leafs are going to be in on that? What does that mean? What does that mean for their cap, for Mitch Marner? It's quite the story. If you think they're in on that?
It is. And yes, absolutely. I think the Leafs are a number of teams that are in on it. And the big thing is that you don't need a ton of cap space to fit him in. I think the number is less than $300,000 of cap space that you need available should you be able to trade him. So that's music to the Leafs' ears and many other contending teams, that it's not just about trying to find out what it would take to to consummate the deal with Carolina, i.e., draft picks or rostered players or prospects. But sometimes this time of year, it's about fitting in still a salary cap. That's not the case with the Leafs. So I think absolutely they would be in it. Question is, by next Friday, where is Rantanen? Is he considering signing a deal? Is it no matter how much money you offer me, I'm not re-signing here? And then Carolina has to make a very hard decision. Earlier on, I think Tom Dundon wasn't scared to let people know that if he doesn't sign, he's going to flip him. Now there's a few different reports out there. Frank Saravelli from Daily Faceoff mentioned that maybe they keep him regardless. A lot of poker going on right now.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And yeah, and from the Leafs perspective, like I love it. Mikko Rantanen's the top player on the planet, in my opinion. But it's like more what they would have to give up, because you're Carolina. Yeah, you want to maybe trade the guy because you got to recoup some assets. You're still trying to win a Stanley Cup. So from the Maple Leafs perspective, just spitballing, who's that including? Is it a Nyes? Is it a McMahon? Somebody like that?
It's a rostered player. There's no question that they're going to want a roster player and a potential guy that can fit into a top six. Now, does Bobby McMahon put himself in that position? Does Carolina see a lot of upside with Bobby McMahon, or do they go higher and ask for Matthew Nyes? And that's really the predicament here if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, I would consider almost Matthew Nyes as an untouchable, but seeing where the Leafs are right now, and this is where the Marner conversation comes up. You got to have a really good indication if this guy still has the potential to resign, or if he's as good as gone. If they believe that he is not going to resign, then having Rantanen as an insurance policy to come in and be that first guy that you're going to target in the offseason to replace Marner, I think is the way to go. And the other thing it can do, it can alleviate the pressure of thinking that you need to keep Matthew Nyes. Rantanen's 27 years old. If you're going to move on Nyes, then it sure is easier pill to swallow, knowing that you're going to have Rantanen for the next 7 years running shotgun with Austin Matthews instead of Matthew Nyes. So this is where the Leafs hopefully have done their homework and they can really understand the dynamics of the next, not only week, but the next few months.
What about further down the depth chart? Center position with some depth is kind of what's been talked about, as well as a right-handed defenseman. I think that's going to be only more apparent as Tanev misses some time, how much they need to shore that up. Where do you think their focus is going to be, and how likely do you think it is that they're going to make a bit of a splash? And some people think they won't be able to get a whole lot done.
Well, the splash forever has been a center ice position, and Shen out of St. Louis has been heavily talked about. The problem is he's 7 years older than a guy like Rantanen. So you got to be in a position where you're not so worried about what Shen will look like in 2 or 3 years, except for what he can bring you this year, and then you just move forward. Shen's more realistic if you're going to give up a Cowan or Minton, right? So if you want to give up one of those guys, maybe plus, then you can go and get Shen. And then, of course, that also alleviates the feeling that you got to bring back Tavares next year at a $6 or $7 million contract, because Shen at 6.5 and potentially Tavares at the same number doesn't make much sense for me moving forward.
Yeah.
A lot of moving parts, but if you were to, put your GM hat and think real hard, do you think they get one of Lawton, Shen, or a Rantanen, like a bigger piece, or are you going to be left disappointed if it's like, say, like a Jake Evans or something like that?
Yes, for me, absolutely. Major disappointment. Again, if you look at Brendan Shanahan over the last 10 years, he's, through the work of Kyle Dubas, he's swung for the fences a couple of times this time of year, and unfortunately have missed. Foligno and Ryan O'Reilly are the two big ones, but he's going to get another crack at this. And this one could be the last one if he doesn't get out of the first round. There's just no way that you can't go fairly big in the next week here. This is go big or go home time for a lot of people in the organization, including the management, who feel like this is the year they got to go deep. And I think it's an excellent opportunity. We're still seeing a fickle Atlantic division between Florida and Tampa Bay. Some nights they look like world beaters. Other nights they look very beatable. When you got the goaltending that the Leafs are getting, this is the year that you got to go all in.
Seems like it. What down in the depth chart, obviously, but Ryan Reeves, do you think there's a spot on this roster? Do they think that the Leafs have him in their plans moving forward?
I don't see with the salary cap situation and the work of who's on IR and who's not long term. I think Reeves is going to be on the outside looking in right now. And if there's once that the salary cap doesn't matter and you're past to a certain date and you can keep him around, there's always the chance he could find himself back in. But right now it doesn't look like he's in the immediate plans.
Kipper, I'm curious to get your opinion on Calle Jarnkrok, who it seems like imminent he's going to make his return in his season debut. There's a lot of people that have not feeling great about Jarnkrok because of the Stanley Cup playoffs he had last year, 0 points in 7 games. Just my speculation. I don't think he was completely healthy in that one. But do you like Jarnkrok as a player? Do you think he could be a good fit for this team down the stretch here?
Yeah. Nick, I'm not really counting on him on any major contributions, but we do know this time of year, and especially in the playoffs when injuries go down, the depth is so important. So if you ask me, and he's kind of grown on me the last little while, I don't mind him being around and being in a position where he can step in. And then on some nights he may have to play in your top 6, and there's other nights he can kill penalties or he can play a fourth line, third line. So I'm okay having him around. The only question is how quickly can he look like a guy that can fit in being off all season? And that's another question mark. But depth is very, very important this time of year. So I'm okay, again, for a guy that's hanging around. But do I feel like I got to go to war with this guy and I got to have him in there? He's not that guy for me just yet.
Personally, I think he's another guy who could be in play. Just to wrap, as we look forward to next Friday, who are some pieces that you think could make sense to leave this roster, and what would you set the over/under on in terms of moves for this team?
Over/under is +2 trades, two and over. So and I think there's some depth still to be picked up on the blue line, and would they, in a perfect world, like to replace Timmins with Luke Shen? Yes, absolutely. But again, Luke's built up some stock over the last few years. He's not going to be cheap. You want to put those brothers together here? They're not going to be cheap. And again, you got to make that decision on what you want to move out. And they don't have their first round pick this year. I'm not sure it scares teams. I think they can float next year's out. You're talking about a bottom third of the first round. There's always a big drop off there. I think teams will be happy to take the Leafs first round next year, opposed to having to have one this year. So I expect Minton or Cowan to be gone pretty much this time next week.
Yeah.
Do you expect is the Rantanen thing like holding the entire market up right now, Kipper, in your opinion? Just because a player of this ilk, like it's hilarious. A month ago, we're talking about this trade coming out of nowhere, and there's the potential he could be available again. And if I'm a contender, I'm like, holy crap, this guy's available. Yeah, I'm interested.
Yeah, I would say under normal circumstances, Nick, that could be the case. But again, this is such a strange dynamic with Rantanen. And now that it's in play that he could stay regardless of not signing, then all of a sudden you don't want to be the Toronto Maple Leafs caught with your pants down waiting for something that doesn't happen. So you can't take that chance. You got to start moving and making some hard decisions as early as this weekend on which direction you want to go. But if many teams are waiting for Rantanen, they're making a mistake here, because they're going to be potentially left without a chair when push comes to shove.
Kipper, it's been great catching up. Thank you so much for making time today. Enjoy the deadline, okay?
Okay, you guys have a great
Thanks,
one,
Kipper.
okay? You enjoy it as well.
Thank you. Take care. That's Nick Kypreos from Kipper and Bourne and Sportsnet, doing great work over there. And just love his insight, love how bold he is, love his thoughts. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, Rosie, over the next week. I mean, we've been talking about this a lot this week, but next Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, we're going to have our answers here.
Well, there's so many moving parts and things to think about, but like, yeah, that's the reality. There is a deadline and it's coming down the barrel. So it's a good point to finish at the end there. Like, you get caught with your pants down waiting for this thing that doesn't happen. All of a sudden you look around and say, oh, everything's gone. Like, you waited for to buy the special thing when everything else is on sale and you didn't get it. And then you're left with nothing. Very tough. The Rantanen thing is wild to me.
Oh,
I can't believe you can get him for that little amount of money to have that player to take a run. And I mean, the Mitch Marner thing totally complicates that, and it would depend on, well, is he re-signing or not? Would you give up what you have to give up to get him if he's not re-signing? If you're gonna get him, does he have to re-sign? Does that mean Mitch is out? Are you giving up the Nyes and all your prospects to get him? Because you're gonna have to give a lot to get him. Does that mean you're going all in this year? It doesn't matter if he re-signs. It's just like a million different things going on. But yeah, what if you just lose Mitch Marner for nothing? Which I don't think they're gonna deal him. Like, imagine they deal him. So like, oh
They
my
can't.
God.
He's got a full no trade. He's not going
Yeah,
anywhere.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I know. Guys have had no trades before, and the GM sits there and comes into your face. Like, then it's just, you're just opening up a bag of worms of total animosity.
How do you do that if you're the Leafs,
I don't
though?
think they will. They
How
won't
do you
that.
do that? You
They
can't.
won't do
Like,
that. It's just you get him there, like you said before the show. You get
Yeah.
Rantanen in the room, all of a sudden Mitch is going, "What the hell does this mean for me?" Like, there's not
Yeah.
enough. It's interesting, man. But
Yeah.
like Kipper says, you focus on that too much, you're going to miss opportunity otherwise. And I mean, if we were able to get, I don't even know how we're going to get both Shens. Like, say you get both Shens, who are you giving up to get both Shens? I don't even know. Like, it's hard to give up enough to make that deal happen just with one of them. Like, you'd almost have to sell the farm for two of those, like, because we don't have a big farm. We don't have a whole lot to give up. Yeah, there's going to be some of the rostered players and whatnot, but I'm not interested in, moving Nyes for anyone that's below Rantanen level. It's a wild time, man. I think Tree is going to be having a lot of meetings and a lot of sleepless nights coming up here.
Patrick G. Mafia writes in, Cowan or Minton gone next week sounds about right. Yeah, that was my major takeaway, is that Kipper speculates that one of those guys at least will be gone by this time next week. So therein lies the intrigue. I know somebody else in the chat earlier on, and maybe speak up if you can, suggested maybe a Yarncroke for a Luke Schenn trade, which honestly, when I think about it, could make a lot of sense for both sides. The Nashville Predators can't score, looking for depth, familiarity there. Yarncroke, I believe, started his career with the Preds. Luke Schenn's got 1 year left in his deal. I guess it depends what they're looking for, but I know they threatened a rebuild earlier on this season, but you got so many vets on that roster, you almost have to go for it next year if you're Nashville.
Yeah, they're a hot mess right now, but I imagine that they're looking to change the look of that in any way, right? And that's something where I think a GM could maybe take advantage of them. I don't think they're no dummies over there, but they're in a spot where it's like, man, we thought we built a Stanley Cup contending team and we're absolutely garbage. Of course, they're looking to change up the chemistry and the mix around there. So a team that you could deal with for sure, and a right-handed D-man like Schenn, who's familiar with Toronto, I get all that. If it would be as something as, we can add Luke Schenn for Yarncroke and we haven't even seen him this year, like, it would really feel like you didn't lose a lot. And if that were to be able to, if they would bite on that, then it leaves it wide open to get that other piece at the 3C level, like the guys that we've talked about. So pretty interesting. Yeah, I think it's funny that he sets it at the line at 2. To think that it would be over that and they make 3 deals, that'd be wild. I'm excited. I hope there's some action. I hope there's some dust that needs to be settled after the deadline, and it's not a disappointing womp womp.
The lines at the morning skate, by the way, Nyes, Matthews, Marner, Holmberg, Tavares, Nylander. So Nylander is out there for the morning skate. Great news there. McMahon, Domi, Robertson, Lorenz, Kampf, Reeves. Kampf was the guy we were forgetting. So Ryan Reeves projected to come back in the lineup, which means your boy Alex Steves going to be a health bomb for this game. Riley OEL, McCabe Myers, Benoit Timmins, Rafai, the number 7, not playing in this game. Again, no Chris Tanev, missed one game prior. The Leafs lost that game against Winnipeg earlier this season.
Yeah, interesting. I think we're going to notice the absence of Tanev on the back. I just keep saying that.
Yes.
I think that's going to be a pretty glaring hole, and it will be obvious starting tonight. Looks like Stoli might start. That's interesting.
Stolarz.
I almost wanted to say that. I just look at the schedule and I'm like, well, this is kind of a big one considering who they have coming up, and maybe nice to go to Wool. But to me now, that like if Stoli plays tonight, that's official. Stoli is their number 1, and Wool is their very capable, waiting in the wings, backup filler guy who can also, if things change, step in and be the one. But right now, Stoli's the number 1 in my mind, and it sounds like it's in the Toronto Maple Leafs mind as well, as good as Stoli, or as good as Woolsey is.
Just reading Luke Fox saying Joseph Wall feeling under the weather. So that helps explain Anthony Stolar is projecting to start again tonight.
Oh, just blew up my theory.
Yeah, my
sick.
apologies. Yeah.
Whatever. I don't mind seeing Stoli in. I would certainly like him to get feeling better if that is the case, because I don't need Stoli playing 3 and 4 in a row, man. I like the way they're kind of spreading it out lately.
As the official sub of the Toronto Maple Leafs, check out Firehouse Subs for a limited edition souvenir cup that is perfect for game day celebrations. Available in select restaurants across Ontario, fans can collect this team-inspired souvenir cup with the purchase of any sub combo while supplies last. Be sure to check out the Brisket Hat-Trick. It's a Canada-exclusive menu item. This hot and hearty sub is piled high with smoked turkey breast, Virginia honey ham, and beef brisket. It is topped off with a sweet and tangy slaw barbecue sauce and mayo and served on a toasted sub roll. Head to your local Firehouse Subs to grab your limited edition Toronto Maple Leafs souvenir cup today. Time for Take It or Leaf It. Are you ready?
Yeah, go. Take it or leave it.
Number 1, take it or leave it. The Leafs will acquire a right-handed shooting defenseman, Rosie.
I take it. I think that's their number 1 priority this year.
Hell yeah. I'm going with take it as well, and I think it's going to be Luke Shen.
Probably the front runner, no doubt.
This guy's calling his shot. Okay, number 2. Take it or leave it. Both Holmberg and Robertson will be Leafs past the deadline.
Whoo! Both of them?
It's got to be both.
I'd say no. I think they're going to try. Everything we're
Leave
talking
it.
about.
Leave it.
You don't let me finish. Kipper talking like it's time to go. It's time to go. You got the goaltending. You got the boys. You don't know what's going on with. It's time to go. Like, quit dicking around. They're going to make moves. They're going to pull triggers. And in order to make that happen, I think one of those guys is going to get thrown into a deal somewhere. So I'd say leave it.
Thank you. That's all I was looking for. Take it or leave it. And sometimes you deviate from
I got
that
more
path.
than one. I got more than one word answers to these, Nick, or we're not doing the segment anymore.
It was more like take it or leave it. That's all I needed, plus your explanation why. Number 3, the third and final one. So I know Florida took over again, but the Leafs have 2 games in hand. The Leafs will hold on to the Atlantic Division title. Take it or leave it.
I think they will. They've pretty much had it. I'll take it. Oh, sorry, I got to specify before I speak. Take it.
Thank you.
They're going to hold on to it. I think after the deadline, they're going to be even better. And I don't know if other teams' hearts are quite in it as far as going all in. Like, this is their year. I think in that division, the Leafs have the best chance. Well, you could say, I think they believe they have the best chance. I think they think they're as good as they've been and as good as they're going to be. And they're going to go all in, and they're going to be better after the deadline than they are beforehand. And they're already leading the damn thing most of the time. So I'll take it.
I'm going to take it too, and the referee's out for this one, producer Vic being the referee in this circumstance. I did not answer the second one. Both Holmberg and Robertson will be leased past the deadline. I'm going to leave it. I just think power of numbers. And I think important to stress too, Pacioretty will miss at least the next 7 days. And what's the 7th day? Next Friday and the trade deadline. So I think there's a lot of moving parts to this whole situation, but I think fascination nevertheless. I know Zach Phillips wondering about Mikko Rantanen in the chat. Did see some books have the Leafs as the favorite, not Bet365, but some books out there have the Leafs as the favorite to land Mikko Rantanen, Rosie. That's because idiots like you and I are betting on them to pick them up.
I honestly hope. I think that would be amazing. I really do. I
don't think it would address the needs. He is not a center. He doesn't play defense, or he's not a right-handed shooting defenseman.
I think he's so good, and to see him playing with some of the big boys. I mean, then you get away from. He's only 26. Like, I thought he was older than that. He is. Yeah. He could be so goddamn good, and to get him at the time where you're trying to make a run for nothing. Like, not you're gonna have to give up a lot as far as cap space. Normally that would be the deciding factor. We have no cap, but you could get him and then kind of let the dust settle, and you're gonna have to ride with the Robertsons and those guys on the third line. But to finally get away from the core four and the same looking bullshit, I think is not exactly the way you would draw it up or how they thought it would go, but I think that would be enough to get them seriously over the hump of their playoff woes. I think it'd be really exciting at the very least.
In essence, what you're telling me is you'd be down to trade Matthew Nice to get Mikko Rantanen. That's what it's going to take. I'm sorry to break it to Leafs fans out there. Yeah,
I'm leaning towards it. Yeah.
Even for a rental. Even for a rental. If Rantanen comes in.
I think there has to be some caveat on.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's a risk, man. It's the same shit Carolina just went through, right? They gave up Martin Necas.
Well, do some homework. Fucking do some due diligence. We'll bring him over here. I don't want to be here. I don't like anything about it. He gets here as shit. He doesn't like it. He's not re-signing. I thought we ever.
And to be fair, Carolina is not Toronto. You come to Toronto, you're pretty horny about it, I think.
I would think so. I mean, I think Carolina is one of the places I wouldn't mind playing just as far as the outside of the rink thing. Like, it's great. The Carolinas are my favorite bloody states in the country, probably, but I think you'd have to figure out, hey, is he interested in signing? Like, we're around here. It's like, yeah, I think we get a deal done type thing. He's excited about that. It piques his interest. At least do some kind of due diligence before you make a deal of that magnitude.
I can't see it. I was just thinking back to Saturday. Like, I was laughing. I was in the press box. Canada just won the Four Nations Championship, and they had to acknowledge all three Leafs players at once instead of being like, congratulations, Mitch Marner. You set up the winner at the Four Nations. Why didn't they acknowledge that, Rosie?
Because Austin Matthews is having a tough time the last couple of weeks, and he needs to be addressed as well.
And you're telling me they're going to bring in a better player, a bigger player. I don't buy it.
You think he's better and bigger?
I do.
Ooh.
And he's won a Stanley Cup. I would pay Mikko Rantanen more money than Mitch Marner. Love the way Marner's playing, but I like the player more. I think he fits more of what they're building here.
So you put them together, sign them, ride Mitchie this year, and let him walk.
Sign both. Drop Tavares.
Well, sign both. Do you think they can humanly sign both?
I say just pay your top six and then just get a scrub from the ECHL for your bottom six.
You're gonna have to.
Let's
see
get Rosie back.
What they have right now. Good lord, good lord! Imagine having that much money in 4 players. It's worse.
I don't buy this. Edward Lee writing in Nate made Rantanen. I don't buy that for a second. I think this guy is shell shocked. I don't think for the life of me expect to leave his boys in Colorado, and then he goes to Carolina. Due his respect. Always got to back that up. It's Carolina. They're notoriously cheap. You're telling me they're going to go over $14 million. I don't buy it. Yeah, it's a good PR move. You offered him, 8 years, 104. That's not $14 million. I know math good enough to tell you it's not $14 million. So while you think it's a good offer, it's not a good offer because we all know what he's getting on the open market.
It's interesting. I don't know, but yeah, you get a guy out of his comfort zone, and then all of a sudden he's not playing with Nathan McKinnon, and he's not happy, and then all of a sudden he looks human. Is his stock dropping a little bit? Is it in his mind too, or is that just dead solid done deal? I don't know. It's interesting though, man. That layer that's happened in the last little while, it makes it really exciting coming down the deadline here.
And the last thing I'll add, folks, just to wrap on the show and the week as we get set for the deadline next week, it's usually not the big moves that produce for your team. I brought up the New York Rangers all week long. They got Tarasenko. They got Patrick Kane. So just because you get Mikko Rantanen into the fold doesn't mean you're winning a Stanley Cup. Oftentimes, it's like those character guys, those Scott Laughtons, those Braden Shens. I always like to bring up the Arturi Lehkonen pickup for Colorado. I thought put them over the top. Barbashev for Vegas. It's those type of moves. Trent Frederick's a guy who's week to week. We just saw him the other night for the Boston Bruins. It's those type of players. I just think when you big brain the operation doesn't necessarily work out. So I would say be careful what you wish for, Leafs Nation.
True that. No one has a crystal ball, but it's fun to speculate.
The Daily Faceoff Trade Deadline Special is coming your way on Friday, March 7th, 11 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, exclusively on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. Instant reaction, expert analysis, special guests. Whatever happens, the DFO crew will have you covered on deadline day, March 7th, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. That's NATION, NATION. Give me a Matthew Nyes anytime goal, Rosie.
Oh, I thought you stole mine. I like it. I'm taking Austin Matthews anytime goal. It's time for this guy to get off of this little slinky dink that he's on and get him on the board by beating an actual goaltender.
We're like 2 games away. If we return on Monday for Monday's edition of the show and Austin Matthews hasn't scored, it's full-blown scorched earth, because that's going to be 14 games in a row, including the 4 nations, without a goal for the best goal scorer on the planet, without a goal past the goalie. He scored an empty netter.
We're getting chintzy, including the 4 nations, but it has to be the goalie. But I mean, it is what it is. 14,
It's
that's
fair.
a long ways to not
man.
bury on a goalie, man. A long time, and I'm surprised, and that's why I got him as my bet today. I think he's going to bury tonight, and if not, definitely this weekend.
Bright lights of Broadway too. I like the look quite a bit. I like the Leafs, to step up for this game. It's an inferior opponent. You have a chance to bury the New York Rangers, so I'm all about it. Rosie, great job this week. We'll reconvene on Monday. Another Amazon Prime game. They're hosting Macklin Celebrini and the San Jose Sharks.
Cool, man. See you there. See you on After Dark as well tonight.
Yes, so Jay's going to be on After Dark tonight. Don't forget, Sunday, we got a 1 Eastern start time in Pittsburgh, and that game just scares the hell out of me. Pittsburgh's playing terribly. It's an afternoon game. Just please show up. If the Leafs show up, they'll win that game. Just simply put.
It's usually how it works for a team running for the cup playing against the third worst team in the league.
There you go. That's Jay Rosehill. I'm Nick Alberga. Thank you to producer Vic. Thank you to everybody in the chat at the Leafs Nation 401 on YouTube. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. Leafs Morning Take wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. Don't forget as well to visit theleafsnation.com. And again, thank you to Nick Kypreos for dropping by. We'll talk on Monday for Deadline Week. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.